This first one is it's about 10 pages or so of a much longer story, but I like it and I thought it would be a good place to start. The title for this one is When I Saw You Running. The man settled on an uphill grade, stopping his truck below his boy's mother's new place. He did not sound his horn. He sat and waited for his son to come out. He had no choice but to look over her new life. And there the bastard was, where he always was when the man came for his son, the other guy. The man's replacement. Seated on the porch, somewhere back in the shadows, watching the man looking for him, sporting that black porno mustache. He had sometimes worried about his wife hooking up with a better man, better than he had been, because in comparison, his own flaws would seem that much larger in her eyes. But this one on the porch was not the better man, this one wagging back and forth in his sleazy porno mustache. It was just after dawn, but it was easy to feel that a hot afternoon was already on its way. The man watched a small whirling dervish crossing the road, picking up leaves like houses in a cyclone and throwing them down. It was the Labor Day weekend, and the normalcy of rain would return soon to the North Oregon coast. The boy's mom was first, then the boy, pedaling down the front steps after her like the cavalry. "He loves you," the woman said. "You know that, don't you? He still looks up to you." "Well, he's shorter than you are." "Oh, Frank," she said, "can't you hear how mean you are? At least you used to try to hide it, but now, do you still think this is something new?" "Don't, not in front of him," the man said, referring to their son. "And him either," he continued, throwing his chin toward the porch. She took in a deep breath, slowly, then let it break out suddenly, as was her habit when talking to the boy's father. "Last thing, Frank, whatever you do, he thinks it's okay for him to do too, Frank." He looked at his son settling into place, buckling his seatbelt. "You know there's things you do that are not okay. You know that, right?" She gave the man a pained, almost embarrassed look that the boy could not see. From the corner of the man's eye, he could see the black porno mustache winding back and forth across the porch, moving in and out of the shadows. Several times, too many now to count, he had told her it was only adding insult to injury to expose the kids to her boyfriends. The guy with the porno mustache she claimed was only her second, but Frank could not stop himself from imagining many more. She said she wanted to save the boy and his sister from the details of their parents' failed relationship, but Frank thought that she was really doing was dropping his kids in a blind alley where they would be doomed to make the same mistakes. Frank did not wait for her to step away from his truck. He released the clutch to let it roll backwards before he proceeded to head up and over the hill. As he'd allowed the truck to roll down with gravity, he'd felt the presence of a surreal shift and allowed the truck to drift back as if he were in a slow-moving stream, like a tree that had swayed to give up its purchase from the soil. And when it let go of the earth, the woman remained rooted beside the road, waving goodbye. Often when his mind became entangled with thoughts of his marriage, he looked to memories of Maggie to unfetter his mind. They had been in junior high and high school together, wrapped together into something bright that had also failed. But they did not fail the way his marriage had failed. What had occurred with Maggie remained bright somehow, gift-wrapped by nostalgia, perhaps, but still. It was what it was. Sometimes he longed to tell her that she'd been right, that he was unable to forget her. Then he remembered that she was married to that ambulance driver. The stress from his current circumstances left him thinking of Maggie more and more, even though he accepted that his thoughts had nowhere to go. At least they were still around when he needed them. The sun was already burning up the east, brightening the western skies. He had awakened to the waning purple glow of bay windows in the old family house. He witnessed the cloud-powdered azure of the open sky, but then he remembered where he was and that he was alone, and his hope drained down through the same black filter that had swallowed so much of him already. He knew having his son along would help him to forget. Beach conditions could not have been better for clam digging. The outgoing tide was still widening the beach, and the waves were low and calm. The skies were blue and without wind, and a round yellow sun was rising. This was the day Frank had chosen to walk barefoot with his son, teaching him how to dig razor clams in the surf. A new stainless steel shovel rocked in the truck's bed as the tires left the last of the asphalt, the truck shaking its way down a short stretch of concrete washboard. The access dropped from there, passing through the low dune ridge. Frank looked out at the sandy plain laid out before them. They were only 15 minutes from the house. Your mom says you worry about me because I'm alone. She says you stress, and that's why you've been biting your fingernails. What do you have to say about that? I say I can handle a lot more than she thinks. I said the same thing. So quit biting your nails. You're making us both look bad. The man's phone was barking, a ringtone he'd set for his ex. He put his phone to his ear. I know, he said. Are you talking to me? Yes. Anyway, don't be late. He has school tomorrow. He needs to be home in time for dinner. I know, the man said again. I've been getting letters from the bank too, Frank. Copies of what they send you about your boat. Back payments. I know you're losing it, and I'm sorry. Haven't lost it yet. It doesn't concern you, except you're the one taking the money I used to pay for it. Frank, she said, stop saying my name so much. It's annoying. I know who I am, and if you can't remember, that's your problem. By the way, you're on speaker. He lied. Don't you want to say hello to your son? I love you, boyo, she said into his ear. Have a great time with your dad. Gotta go. The man put his hand on the wheel to turn toward the thin spread of salt water. You and Mom fight more now than when we lived together. What does divorce fix, anyway? Don't know yet. It was supposed to mean there was nothing left to fight about. The man took the truck out of gear and turned the engine off. They were slowly coasting down the gentle downward slope toward the ocean. And Dad, Mom gave me a card to give to you. You want it? Is it a bill? No. She said she's trying to be nice. Frank didn't want to read the card. All curiosity about anything regarding her only led to anger. To him, anything nice she had to say was just a small hole that she would eventually tear into a bigger one. He dropped the envelope over the back of the seat. Then he saw a redhead in red boots kicking up water as she was walking in from one of the sandbars. See that gal there in the red boots? The man pointed. The one there with the long hair? The boy nodded his head. That's your real mother. And you're making this up because one night she got me drunk, had her way with me, and before I knew it, I was pregnant with you. It's just time to tell you the truth. Yeah, well, it doesn't work that way. Care to enlighten me on how it does work? No, but I know. Just checking. Just making sure you have all your birds and bees in a row. I guess. Who's the lady in the red boots? Don't know, but I'd sure like to try her on for size. If I did know her, I would call her Hope, because every time I looked at her, she would fill my eyes with hope. Plus, it looks like she has some nice warm puppies. Puppies? She looks like one hell of a swimmer, doesn't she? Look at that set of lungs on her. Why don't you go play in the ocean while I take her home for a swim? And Dad, you say your name's Hope? Yes. Well, good, because Hope's walking straight at us. Sure enough, the redhead in the red boots was sauntering right up to the truck, her waist net laden with clams. I thought you said you didn't know her, the boy said. and he pressed himself back into his seat. She walked casually up to the passenger side of the black pickup as if she'd done it 100 times before, but she did not lean inside and she did not see the boy. She locked her shovel between her crossed legs and draped her hands like small brown towels over the edge of the window frame, leaning back toward the water. There was a light breeze backing her, and the air inside the truck began to fill with her sweet, refreshing scent. "So how's it hanging over here, Frank?" "Okay. You?" "You know, happy as a clam at high tide." "The red, it looks great on you. It's a change." "Hi," the boy said, now suddenly in the window frame. "Nice clams." She was not one to show when she was startled. "Where on God's green earth did you come from?" "Ask my dad. We were just talking about that." "Where'd you find this kid, Frank? He's kind of tough looking. Are those scars or dimples, kid?" The boy stuck out his right hand. "My name's Chance." "Hello, Chance," the woman said, officially shaking the boy's hand. "Nice to make your acquaintance. My name's Maggie." "Maggie? Are you sure?" "That's what people call me." "My dad was just talking about you, and he said your name's Hope. He said he didn't know you, so I don't know." "Your dad's getting old, that's all. See all that gray hair he's trying to hide under his hat? He's kind of a mess, but don't hold it against him. He means well. Besides," she looked sideways at Frank, "you sure he was talking about me?" "Unquestionably. Red boots, red hair, pretty, some other stuff." "Oh, shucks, Frank, you think I'm pretty?" "He says you're a good swimmer." "Does he now? Well, perhaps his memory is not as bad as I thought." "I still don't know why you called yourself Maggie or whatever. What I don't know is why you called me Hope or whatever." Chance shook his head as if he had sand in his hair. "You guys are hard to understand." "Looks like you didn't have a hard time getting your limit," the man said. "You mean these little puppies?" She said, standing up, stretching, arching her back, and looking down at her catch. All Chance could see through the window were her breasts. "These are what your dad's been talking about when he says he didn't get any. Want to touch them?" The boy looked at his dad with his eyes stretched wide open. "Don't worry, son," the man said. "One day you'll get some, and they'll be even bigger than hers." The boy couldn't stand it any longer and began to clumsily cover his face with the backs of his hands. "Did I miss something?" Maggie asked, leaning into the truck. "Nope," the boy said, now laughing even harder. "You aren't missing anything." Maggie said. Then she saw the shovels in the bed of the truck. Well, well, looks like someone's got a spanking new stainless back there. You wait any longer, it's going to be too late to use it, sleepyhead." "That's my dad's." "Both of them?" Chance sat up and stretched his neck, trying to see over the back seat. "Yesterday was his birthday," the man said. "That's his gift, but he hasn't seen it yet." "Oops," Maggie said. "You told me we're going to share your shovel," Chance said. Then he rolled back over the seat and squeezed through the sliding window. Maggie was still standing at the passenger door. She patted the window frame with both hands as she prepared to go. "Well, I've done enough damage for one day. Glad you got to see me, Frank. Have fun swimming. Try not to drown yourself." Red boots at night, sailor's delight, he thought. Red boots at morning. Frank told himself again that there was nothing between him and Maggie, not anymore. Whatever they'd had, they'd left in Bankowski's barn, and that was that. He could think about her however he wanted when she wasn't around, but he needed to not carry that fantasy into the few occasions when he got to see her. Maggie was married to that Medix driver, and nothing was going to change. The part that he could have of her was only memory and fantasy, and he knew it. She was the woman on his mind when he needed someone close to him, and that was all. The man looked at his rearview mirror to keep an eye on his son. He kept seeing the oddity of the back of the boy's swaying head as they rolled down the beach. For some reason, this made him laugh. He kept smiling as it occurred to him just how easy it was to love him. The man checked his mileage and slowed to a stop. A red pickup was parked at the edge of the water, near to his usual digging spot. The boy poked his head through the window, now pointing his finger toward the red truck. "There's someone in the water," he said. "Where?" "Between that truck and the great big sandbar." The man took his binoculars from beneath the seat. "There's two," he said. He threw his binoculars down and told the boy to hang on. The truck's engine roared and the body shook as the tires fought for traction. The boy could not help himself from sliding back against the closed tailgate. The truck lurched across the sand, then fell to a hard stop that hurled the boy up against the cab this time. A string of deep tide pools barred further passage. "What's wrong?" the boy asked. In one motion, the man turned off the engine, turned on his emergency flashers, opened his door, and tossed his cell phone at the boy. "Someone's drowning. Call 911. And I don't want you down there. You understand?" He didn't wait for his son's reply. The man was running harder than he'd run in 20 years, so long ago that he was unfamiliar with the bouncing of his gut when he ran, and it bothered him. He crashed into a tide pool that was waist deep and pulled him down. He saw that one of the people in the water could not help himself enough to even hold up his head. The man who had been swimming tried to stand up when he got into the shallows, but he was exhausted. He had a red beard and a black stocking cap, while the other man was nearly bald, much older, heavier, and unconscious. "He's not breathing," the bearded man said as he continued to gasp for air. "I think he's dead." He was holding the old man's head in his lap to keep it out of the water. His arms were too weak to hold him up anymore. He was too tired to move. Frank grabbed the old man beneath the arms and tried hard to pull him onto the hard sand, but he was too heavy for Frank to move by himself. Then someone grabbed onto the old man's slicker rubber waders with him. Both were looking for better handles, but they pulled with what they had. Together they pulled the old man up the beach till both feet were clear from the chilling water. All the man saw of his helper was her feet, because he had to keep his head down while pulling, but he recognized the red boots. "Now you glad to see me?" Maggie said. "Every time," he admitted. "The guy who brought him in, that guy in the beard there, he thinks he's dead." "We're not qualified to make that decision. We have to start CPR and hope he snaps out of it. Has anyone called medics?" "Chance did, while I was running down here. He's a good boy. When I saw you running, that's when I knew something was wrong. You ready? You want top or bottom, blow or pump, it's all the same. We'll need to switch soon anyway." "Hey," Maggie called to the bearded man. "We're going to need backup, so don't go away." Cars were now stopping. They were collecting in a half moon around the man, the old man, and Maggie. People were getting out of the cars, inching their way in, making tighter standing half circles. A group was running up the beach along the edge of the water toward them, throwing down everything as they ran. "Uh-oh," Maggie whispered. "Looks like family."